is, folks, the first super tournament of the year, 2015, the 77th Tata Steel Chess Tournament. Great action, great tournament, great world-class players. Don't miss any of the action. Well, folks, here are the standings after 8 rounds in the 77th edition of Tata Steel Chess, the Masters section. Current world champion Magnus Carlsen with 6 points. Magnus has won 5 in a row. And tied for second is Wesley So, new American player. Maxime Vacher-Lagrave and Ding with 5.5. Ivanchuk with 5. Poor Ivanchuk, he's playing so well, he lost today, round 8. Rajabov and Caruana with 4.5. Wojciech with 4. Geary with 4. And poor Levin Aronian. I don't know what's happened to Levin lately. 6 draws and 2 losses, -2. He's in 10th place. Hu Yifan, current women's world champion at 2.5. Sark 2.5. Van Wheelie at 2. And Joe Baba with 1.5. And there you have the standings after 8 rounds in the 77th edition of Tata Steel Chess. Hi folks, John Cordisco back again. Hell of a game here, hell of a game. Round 8 of the 77th edition of Tata Steel Chess, the Masters section. Between someone who needs no introduction in the chess world, Vasily Ivanchuk from Ukraine as white, and Wesley So, originally from the Philippines, now plays for the United States as black. It's a hell of a game. This is a game that shows one thing. Oh, I do want to say before I forget, quite a pretty good post-mortem on the game by the winner at the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. This just shows the difference between these world-class players and us regular players. Not just their ability. It's different ideas and new things that come up, and these guys have to keep track as it goes on. It's the preparation, and the amount of preparation you have to learn is just mind-numbing. Anyway, folks, enough of that. It's going to be a closed Sicilian. Ivanchuk is white, Wesley So is black. Let's get to it. We've all seen this a couple of 100,000 times. Castles. Knight C3 looks pretty good. D3. Ivanchuk decides to go H3. Bishop. D3. Typical stuff. D5. You've all seen this a lot of times. E takes. Knight takes. Knight to D2. If white had taken instead, knight takes, rook takes, knight F6. That poor knight out there looks pretty, or poor rook looks pretty lonely. All those pieces are going to go after him. Queen D7. Knight takes. Knight takes. Rook takes. Now white's up a pawn. But look what's coming here. You've got this bishop. This bishop coming down. The queen's going to come over. This knight's going to get in the action. This bishop's being blocked out. That's a big deal. Computer calls for knight to F6, but Wesley found something that he's been working on. Knight to F4. I guess that's something new. And they talk about that in the post-mortem. Knight F3. Now the computer calls for knight to D5, knight to G6. Wesley decides to go for it. Knight takes G2. King takes A5. Now what the computer really liked was A5, but it shows over a 2-point advantage now for white. Now this is the difference. Even Vasily Ivanchuk, one of the geniuses of chess, still is, has trouble figuring this out. It's so complicated. But the computer, of course, can think of it instantly. And that's why you get these computer evaluations taken with a grain of salt. Because of the fact, hey, you know what? It's human beings playing this, not computers. A5. A4. Computer likes C3. Right now, technically, white is up a piece. He takes the piece and it goes right down immediately. Give you an idea, the computer liked A4, then after rook, queen E2, rook checks, king H2, bishop D7. Still an advantage for white. Remember, white's up a piece. But after rook takes, queen takes. Now granted, white has two pieces for the rook. His king is pretty exposed though, and look at this poor knight. He's got the queen guarding him, but this king has to guard him as well, and is also being pinned. Not good. This is tough to play for any human. Now this is where I think Ivanchuk goes wrong. A4, and the game is basically even. He decides to go to C3, and right away the points start stacking up for black. Over a point and a half right now, and is starting to climb. He had gone A4 instead. Rook A6, the rook's going to get anyway. D4, and I think white can survive. After the rook checks, king goes to F1, and I think he can survive. But after C3, rook to A6, and what are you going to do here? They all the options suck. D4, rook F6, rook to G6 is what the computer really liked, and it was the third move, rook to F6. Now, basically, believe it or not, the game is basically even. This is where I want to mention, even for us lower rated or amateur players, as well as these guys who are the best players in the world, the pros, emotion plays a lot in the part of a game. I'm sure Vasily, as brilliant as he is, feels that he stumbled into a preparation, and he is having a tough time trying to find the moves to save himself. Now he does do the computer move D5. It's less than a pawn advantage for white, but I think white can survive this. A4, bishop to C2, of course, rook to D8, queen E1, looking to trade queens. It's worth giving up that pawn on D5 to trade queens, believe me. And that's what he wants to do. And I'll tell you the truth, he really can't take it. Because after queen takes, knight takes, rook takes, this bishop goes here. Picks up this bishop. Queen to D7. And this is where I think the pressure gets to Vasily again. It's a somewhat natural move, to be honest with you. But the computer likes queen to E4. Get that queen centralized. Get it over on the king side to help defend. Vasily decides to go knight to G5. And slowly but surely, black's advantage is increasing. After queen to E4, rook checks, king H2, bishop takes, queen to F5, queen takes, bishop takes, bishop takes, bishop takes, pawn takes, bishop F4. Now granted, it really sucks still for white, but I think Vasily can survive this with the opposite bishops. But after knight to G5, he kicks the knight goes to E4, and the rook checks. What to do, what to do? I mean, what would you do here? Of course, you got to move the king, but F5, kicking the knight. Now, what do you do? What do you do? Do you give the piece back, pick up a pawn for it, and hope to survive down the exchange in a pawn? Computer calls for C4, which I think is the best move under the circumstances, and they talked about that. Second best choice is bishop F4. Vasily goes knight to G3, which I think is a very natural move. It's instinctual. Keep your pieces around your king. Knights are good defenders. You got the bishops here helping out in the defense. But unfortunately, that's a disaster. After bishop F4 is what he should have done. Rook to E8, not taking the knight. And then F3. It's probably the best that black or white could hope for. But after knight to G3, queen takes, queen G1. It's a 7-point advantage for black. It's Curtains. Queen F3. And that's where Ivanchuk said, that's it. I've had enough. No mas, as they say. What are you going to do here? Give you an idea. Bishop E3. Now stop the video now and try to see what the correct move is for black here. It's a really amazing move. So stop the video now before I tell you what it is. In the move that black plays in this instance, queen takes bishop. Wow, wow, and wow. Look at this. Pawn takes. Rook checks. It's a disaster. Absolute disaster. Bishop takes. Rook to d2. It's still bad. And so, Ivanchuk been playing really well. And he's the oldest guy in the tournament. But Wesley So wins. Hell of a game by Wesley. Pretty good preparation. He caught Ivanchuk off guard. And believing that's not so easy. Anyway, folks,